I think a game like this, and it's always tough with a new franchise to break out, because the average consumer knows about sequels. And that's why we've been really careful when we talk about BioShock, to be very specific about it. It's a first-person shooter. And what we're trying to do, and I think you saw in the demo tonight, when we want to break it out to the larger audience, it's a first-person shooter. We can do all these incredibly cool things. We can, light a guy on fire and watch him run to a body of water to throw himself in, and then electrocute him in that body of water. Where you have, where you can take control of a bot and then put proximity mines on him and send him on a kamikaze mission to blow up a Big Daddy. And then there's the terms of the weapons, all these great weapons that are fully modifiable and 3 ammo types for each. You have to come where they are first and say, great shooter, and then you hit them with the other stuff. Where a hardcore audience might be more inclined to give you a little time and say, oh, tell me about the world and the deeper game systems. You gotta with the larger audience, the more casual audience, you have to deliver on the shooter first, and then hit them with all the other cool stuff. Certainly, there's I think a huge amount of potential in the world of BioShock. Not just in the aesthetic and the world created in Rapture. I think if we're going to do a sequel, they're the gameplay elements. And what we're really doing is we're saying, hey, what if everything in the world was interactive? What if everything you saw could be turned into a weapon? I think you saw that tonight, that we turned pretty much everything in that room into a weapon. The objects in the world, the enemies in the world, the security system in the world, and turn the monsters against each other, make them your friends, then turn them into an enemy again. And that's, I think, a really unique dynamic as compared to your average corridor shooter. It's really just an extended ball of string where you know where all the enemies are going to spawn. BioShock is really an open-ended experience in terms of the player choice and how he goes about fighting all the battles. And you saw the same battle tonight, fought 3 totally different ways. And I think that's really what separates from the aesthetic and the story and everything like that, which I think is awesome. That's what the core of BioShock is from a gameplay perspective. It's a shooter that the gamer chooses how he plays it. I think fiction is important to BioShock in the sense that you have sort of different types of people who play a shooter. You have the people who are going to play it and just be like, where's the next thing I can shoot? And give me the basics of the quest I have to do. Like I have to open a door somewhere. Okay, I get it. That's what I call the first tier of people who are shooter playing. They don't really care about story. They just want to shoot stuff. And they'll enjoy the shooting, they'll enjoy all the other stuff we showed in the day, all the environmental interaction. And then you have the second tier, people are like, oh, I know why I'm opening that door, I know that guy told me to, and I'm following the plot in this vague way. But what's great about BioShock for people who love story is you can see through all this stuff in the world, from every poster on the wall to little movies we have in the game, like all the training videos you get for each of the genetic powers, to all the audio diaries you find in the world. There's an incredibly deep story that's told there for this guy who wants to play like detective and figure out what happened in Rapture. And you don't need to do that stuff, but if you want to, it's all there for you, and I think it really enriches the experience. The game at the beginning is, once you move through an area, there are several blockages, plot blockages, and quest blockages, but once you open those, you can freely move back and forth through the world as you see fit. You can go back and you can harvest loot from old areas that are a little easier if you get behind a little bit. It's also structurally really interesting because most shooters are basically, like, if you think about them, they're balls of string. You unroll the ball string and it sort of goes around and you follow it, but it's a totally linear hallway if you really think about it. Whether it's Half-Life or Doom. BioShock, because one of the key things in the game is you saw the Big Daddy. He's walking around the level and you can just follow him around the level, and you're going to have to take him down to get to the little sister. But you choose where you're going to fight him. You choose the time and place where it's right for you, where you control the security, where you control the enemies, where you set up traps, anywhere in the level. So it's like a boss battle that you choose where it happens. And I think that's really key in BioShock. Well, the first goal in BioShock to really be different was to create the relationship between these sort of, these neutral entities, the Big Daddy and the little sister, who you need to deal with. But you deal with them either by intention when you want to deal with them, or if they get caught, if a stray shell hits them in a combat, they may come into the combat. And building their relationship, and you can see them walking around the world, and she gets tired, and he says, come on, let's go. And they have all these interactions with her. He in a combat, he grabs her. You saw that in the Big Daddy video. He actually would grab her and pull her out of the way. That was a huge amount of work to get right. And you saw when he died, she actually mourns him. And it's a huge amount of work to get that right. But we really wanted to make a game where you felt there were characters who weren't just your enemies in the world, who you had other kinds of interactions with. So it was a huge amount of work. All the AI types are really different. You saw the grenade guys, you've seen the teleporters before. It's a lot harder than a game like SWAT, which we did earlier, where you're just basically doing the same AI for every enemy type. So it was a huge amount of work. Like everything in BioShock, it was a huge amount of work. Well, I can dig, David Jaffe's vibe right now, because he's like, after God of War, I think he just got tired. He said that was a huge game. Look, BioShock's been a huge game, and it's been 3+ years working on it. And the team is, we're tired, but we're psyched for the finish line. But I think one of the great things, if you look at, Xbox Live and what Sony's doing, that there's this downloadable stuff. So you're really seeing gaming sort of going in two directions. You have these big, high-end, big-budget titles like BioShock, and then you see stuff like on arcade, which, hey, maybe we'll go off and do something like that, for a little while and do those kind of games. I think the tougher space is the space in the middle, which is sort of like, mid-range games, which are really harder to get attention on, because right now, the way it works, you really have to be something really big or something really small. And both of those are really appealing to me, and I think those are the things I'm more interested in. So I like that, and I really like that the opportunities are forming for these huge things and these really small things that people are getting on both sides. It is the traditional problem of any industry as it gets bigger, that the expectations of the audience gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it pushes out a group, which is the guys who new guys. Like, I don't know if we could have started Irrational now. But on the other hand, if you look at the things that are going on in arcade, there are opportunities that weren't there 10 years ago. But at retail, the traditional box retail $50, $60 model, it's getting really tough, I think, unless you're like a really big guy. But that's why digital distribution is critical, because that model doesn't require, a $20, $30, $40, a $30, $40, $50 game. It requires a $10 game. You can actually make money on it. So it's sort of balancing that a little bit, but it's a lot harder than it was 10 years ago to get rolling.
Oh, Christ! You're trapped! Gonna try to override the exit from here!
So tell me, friend, which one of the bitches said to you? The KGB wolf or the CIA jackal? Here's the news. Rapture isn't some sunken ship for you to plunder. And Andrew Ryan isn't a giddy socialite who can be slapped around by government muscle. And with that, farewell, or до свидания, whichever you will.
I'm good looking.